Hey, everybody. It's been a little while since I've done a live stream, so I thought I'd hop on here and just kind of answer some of your burning real estate questions and kind of respond to a few more comments that I've gotten on some of my videos. So if you guys by all means have any other questions about the real estate market or the home buying or selling process, by all means comment down below and I'd be happy to answer that live on this quick little live stream here. You know, I recently had a client that we submitted an offer $100,000 over the list price, and we still didn't get the property. So that's kind of how crazy this market is, that we are still seeing just really low inventory and just a really high demand from buyers, just a lot of buyers into the market. So it's still a crazy market. And I'll be honest, I don't know when that's going to end. It may be kind of a wild ride like this for a good while now. Kevin says, good afternoon from Lakeland, Florida. Hey, Kevin, thanks for joining us. But yeah, you know, if people ask me like, man, are we going to see a real estate market crash soon? Or, you know, is now a good time to buy? Is everything going to crash? I'll be honest, I think it's going to keep going up. I don't really see an end in sight for this crazy market that we're in. And now may still be a great time to buy because I still think the market's going to go up. But you know, predicting the market, there's a saying that time in the market is better than timing the market. And I don't think that anybody, unless you're specifically a real estate investor, you shouldn't really let the market condition kind of scare you off or influence when you buy a house. You really want to buy a house when it's right for you and your family. Time in the market is better than timing the market, because who the heck knows, man? It's so hard to try to predict what's going to happen in the market. But let's get a couple of comments on some of my videos here. So Well says, I'm about to enter the market as a seller and a buyer in Georgia. This is some great info. I'm retired Air Force and see you were in the Air Force as well. Thank you for continuing to serve in this capacity. Well needed. Yeah, so he's going to be selling and buying at the same time. You know, a lot of people, when they sell a house, they're like, yes, look, I made $100,000 profit off this house. But what they don't realize is that they are also buying a house in this elevated market. And that kind of cancels that out in a lot of ways. Like the smart thing to do is take that $100,000 profit and that equity and put it into your next property. The only real time that that's not the case is if you are moving to a different market. If you're going someplace with really crazy high demand, you're moving out to the country where it's a little bit more rural, maybe it's a little bit easier for you to get something affordable. You know, that's definitely an option as well. And if you are buying a home and selling a home at the same time, the best possible thing would be for you to sell your house first and then buy a house afterwards, instead of trying to do it at the same time. A year ago, 2 years ago, we could get away with that. We could have contingencies saying that I want to buy this house, but I want to sell my house first, or I want to close on my sale first before I buy this house. We're really not seeing that at all right now. It is so challenging to get an offer accepted as a buyer in this market that we're really not seeing any home sale contingencies getting accepted. Now, I don't want to scare people too much, because what's interesting is just like 10, 15 mile difference can be a pretty big difference in the market. You know, I was telling you about that property we submitted $100,000 above the list price, and we still didn't get it. Well, that's because that's kind of in a very specific area that's high demand. 10 miles away, you absolutely would have gotten it, right? It's not that crazy. So even cities right next to each other, the market can be very different. And you can quantify this a little bit. You can measure it, you know, in terms of how many offers properties are getting, or how quickly they're selling, or how much above list price they're selling for. And it's pretty dramatic how one city much easier to get your offer accepted than another city. So I don't want to scare people off entirely, because where you are and where you're buying may be a little bit different and maybe a lot easier for you to get an offer accepted. But I will say that virtually everywhere here in Maryland, virtually every property is selling above list price. And it's been that way at least for the last 12 months, maybe even like 15, 16 months. And that's what's driving the home values up and the prices are continuing to go up because every property is selling above list price, right? You put it on the market and all your offers are $5,000-$10,000 above that price. And then the next month, same thing, and just keeps going and going and going. And people are using those other home sales as comps to justify their price as well. So it's a wild market right now. It's still a good time to get into the market. I will say that, though. I do believe that. Steven says, what about the moratoriums? Are there supposed to be a bunch of foreclosures coming? Yeah, good question. So I'll be honest, I haven't really kept up to date on the moratoriums, and I only haven't because they just keep extending them. It's like every month they extend them for the foreclosure moratorium another month. And then there's also a lot of statewide moratoriums as well. So I do see that those probably will end soon. I would imagine as long as the stock market and the unemployment, as long as the economy is doing well, I do see that they're going to end those moratoriums in the next 6 months or so. Some states already have ended their state-specific moratoriums as well. So it really is kind of on a state-by-state basis. Because what it was is all the federally backed loans, they had moratoriums on foreclosures on those. And then a lot of states took that a little bit further and applied that to all loans, not just federally backed. But like in Florida, like 2-3 months ago, Florida stopped doing that. So their statewide moratorium ended, but the federal moratorium on foreclosures was still in effect. So here's what's going to happen, though. Let's say 6 months from now, the federal moratorium ends. Banks can now foreclose on properties. Foreclosure process is a long process. It could take a year. It could take 2 years, especially if the banks are overwhelmed. And it could take a while before we start seeing that inventory in the market. And what's really interesting is that it's a crazy buyer market right now. Huge demand from buyers, not much inventory. We're seeing the same thing in the rental market too, which is really interesting, that there's just not that many rental properties on the market, and there's just a huge demand for rentals as well. So it's a really like unbalanced market right now where people are just not selling their homes or renting them out. It's kind of frustrating. But yeah, I do think that, the moratorium is going to end and it will help with inventory. But the challenge with that is that a lot of foreclosures, they're not going to qualify for federal loans anyway, like VA and FHA loans. They have some minimum requirements for the house. So, it may not be that silver bullet that really helps everybody out. But we'll have to see what happens with that. I think, in the next 1 to 2 years, we'll start seeing more foreclosures on the market. We'll also see a lot more short sales as well, because if you get notice from a bank saying, hey, we're going to foreclose on you, you don't necessarily just have to say, okay, well, you guys go ahead and foreclose on me. You can try to do a short sale. And a short sale is essentially you saying, hey, let me just sell the house and I'll give you all the profits from the sale. And we'll just call this thing even. Banks like doing that because banks don't like having inventory and holding on to it, because there's a lot more risk involved with that. If something happens to the property, then they get a real estate agent, they got to sell it, and it takes a long time. So if a bank can do a short sale and only lose a little bit of money on it, most of the time they will go with that option. And I also say that because home prices have been going up so high, a lot of people have a lot of equity in their homes right now as well. And so that really helps prevent a foreclosure crisis as well. And my prediction, my thinking is that the Federal Reserve did that on purpose, right? They knew that lowering interest rate is going to create a surge of buyers in the market and cause home prices to go up. And I think that they did that in order to build equity in people's homes to prevent another foreclosure crisis like we saw in 2008. That's my conspiracy theory on that anyway. And I mean, they would be justified in doing that. It's not a bad thing to do that. But because of that, we're not going to see as much foreclosures as we did in 2008, which I think is a good thing. That was a major disruption in a really bad way to the entire market. Yeah, this whole crazy market that we're in, just so everybody understands, it's artificially crazy like this because the Fed has lowered interest rates, and they could stop this market in a heartbeat by raising interest rates. As soon as they do that, suddenly buyers can't afford as much, and suddenly a lot of people can't afford to be buyers and enter into the market. So the demand from buyers will go down. And that kind of will balance out the market, right? The Federal Reserve created this crazy market. Like, we had low inventory for the past 10 years. Every year, inventory has gotten lower and lower. But this demand from the buyers we haven't had, hasn't been this crazy for the past 10 years. So this is completely an artificial market created by the Federal Reserve. You know, like I said, they may be doing it on purpose just to prevent that foreclosure crisis. Who knows? But that's kind of another reason why, you know, I say, hey, man, go for it. Buy a house right now, because the Fed could raise rates just like that. They could do it tomorrow or next month, a month after that. And suddenly, you know, these 2%, 3% interest rates, you know, are going to be kind of a small window that if you didn't lock one in, you know, you kind of missed out on that. That's how I look at it anyway. So Val says, how is the increase in institutional and corporate single-family home buyers that turn homes into rental impacting home prices? Yeah, good question, man. So we saw a lot of that in 2008. That was a big concern when people were coming in and just buying, you know, everything on the market. They were just buying it at kind of the bottom of the market because they thought that they're going to go up. And, you know, the rumor has it that we are seeing more of that now. We are seeing more reports of institutions getting into residential real estate. And it's interesting. Like I was saying before, we actually have a shortage of rental properties right now as well. You know, that's what I find really interesting, is we don't have a lot of rentals and we don't have a lot of listings. It's just, you know, a lot of people just living in homes and not moving. But what we're really seeing right now is a lot of people really concerned about inflation. And I think that they're rightfully so concerned about that. My personal opinion is that these rising home prices and the rising stock prices as well, those two things are indications of inflation. And we are already seeing reports of people, consumer products increasing in value. And one of the best ways, let's say you have your corporation, you have $100 million. You don't want to keep that in dollars, right? Because of inflation, like, you're guaranteed to lose 2 to 3% of that every year. But, you know, in 1985, we saw 15% inflation in just 1 year. In a 12-month period, we saw the US dollar lose 15% of its value in 1985. So we do see these crazy spikes from time to time of really high inflation that we can't really control. And so if you have $100 million in your corporation and you want to invest in some assets, you're going to buy things like real estate and gold and maybe cryptocurrency, you know, to protect that money from inflation. The worst thing that you could do is to keep your money as US dollars, as a currency, a fiat currency like that. And I genuinely do think that we are going to see a lot more inflation. The guy that the movie The Big Short was based off of, right? He's the one who kind of predicted the 2008 housing crisis, and he took out a big short against the housing market and everything. I forget his name, but he is really advocating that we are in an inflation bubble and that we are going to see hyperinflation in the next 12 months. And he's really like preaching that. It's kind of a weird guy. I don't really know how valid that is or not, but I concur. I do think that as well. And that's also why we're seeing a big increase in cryptocurrency right now, because it's a hedge against inflation against the US dollar. So these corporations that are getting in, they're paying a premium right now for these houses. It's not like 2008 when they're buying at the bottom of the market. They're buying at the top of the market, but they think because of inflation, the market's going to keep going up. Or even if it just stays neutral, they're just at least not going to lose that money. And you know, with inflation, you're guaranteed to lose money, right? If you have $100,000 in your bank account and you see a 3% inflation rate, you essentially just lost $3,000. You see a 10% inflation rate, you just lost $10,000 by keeping it in the U.S. Currency. So you don't want to have money as money. You want to have it in different assets. And yeah, so I totally believe it that corporations would be investing in residential real estate right now and kind of building out their portfolio as a hedge against inflation. So how's that going to impact the market? Well, yeah, it's going to be more buyers in the market. It's going to be harder to, and a lot of those, the corporations, they're going to have just more attractive offers, most likely, especially if they're buying cash, or maybe they're going to waive the inspections or waive the appraisal. It's just going to add fuel to that fire of this market. But hopefully we'd also see an increase in rentals as well. It blows my mind that at least here in Maryland, we just don't have many rentals that are available. And the thing about it, the inflation, right? How I honestly do think that we are going to see hyperinflation in the next couple of years. I read one report saying that 25% of all US dollars were printed in 2020. So like we increased the US supply, the supply of US dollars by 25% in 2020. It's like, how do you do that and not see inflation? And my theory is that, again, Jerome Powell, the Federal Reserve, this may be a calculated move. He may understand that, yes, we are going to see inflation, but it's going to keep our economy from crumbling and collapsing, which he probably thinks is a lot worse. So it's kind of like he's accepting inflation in order to keep the economy going. That's my theory of why they printed so many stimulus checks and just started handing out trillions and trillions of dollars and they're buying mortgage-backed securities, right? That's a big part of this whole crazy market as well, is that the Federal Reserve is buying mortgage-backed securities. So the banks, they give out the loans, they put all these loans into a package, and then they sell them, and the Federal Reserve is buying that debt and buying those loans. If they did not do that, the banks wouldn't loan as much, right? They would tighten up their regulations for loaning money. And if the Federal Reserve didn't lower their interest rate that they lend money to banks, then consumer banks couldn't lend us money at such a low rate either. So this whole market is controlled and influenced by the Federal Reserve and their decisions. And yeah, it's kind of up to them, what happens in this market. And what that tells us is that they're okay with what's going on in the market right now, because they think that what the alternative would be a lot worse. That's how I look at it. And yes, I do think that we are going to start seeing inflation. And you don't want to have a lot of money as actual dollars. Stick it in the stock market, stick it in real estate, stick it in cryptocurrency, gold, silver, anything you want. Just don't keep it as US dollars. That's my view on it. That's how you protect your wealth from inflation. So Devin says, great info, thank you. No crash coming, laugh out loud. Prices of homes here in Arizona are increasing weekly. You could buy a home 1 month and 2 month, resell it and make $50,000. It's crazy nuts. Yeah, so that's a real thing. We are seeing that. Here in Maryland, not so much. There's a few specific states and like cities within those states that, because a lot of people are allowing their employees to work from home, people are kind of leaving these big cities, leaving the cities with high taxes and moving out to more rural areas, especially Arizona and Texas and a few other rural areas as well. So yeah, like Phoenix, Arizona, it's just a crazy market right now. And like we have a few crazy markets within Maryland. It's just like a specific city, but overall in Maryland, it's not that bad. I had a friend that I helped him buy a home in 2019 here. And then 2020 came around and his employer said, hey, look, you can just work from home permanently. And so he's like, okay, great. I'm getting the heck out of Maryland. I'm moving back to my home state of Pennsylvania. And so 12 months after he bought that home, we sold it for $50,000 above list price, which is unheard of, right? $50,000 above what he paid for it 12 months earlier. And he really didn't make that many improvements or anything to it. And that's just the market. And that home has probably increased another $10,000, $20,000 since he bought it. Yeah, it's just what it is. And there's really no end in sight for this market. Now the bottom could fall out at any time. The Federal Reserve could change their policy at any time. But I'm not really seeing that happening right now. There are just no houses for sale from OMG. Okay, I'm not reading that. Yeah, so yeah, there's just no inventory. I'm a little surprised by that. My prediction was that in 2020, there's a lot of people who didn't sell their houses because, maybe they're a little bit older or they're scared about having people come into the property with this whole virus going around. But now that the vaccine is here and available, I was expecting more inventory to be on the market right now than there is. And what's keeping a lot of people from actually selling their homes is that they don't want to then enter into that buyer market. That's really crazy. And I have clients that we sell their home and then we're like, okay, let's go and start helping you buy a home. And it's a challenge to help them buy that home. So there's a lot of people that the crazy buying market is keeping them from selling their home. It's a catch-22. Yeah, man, it's just a crazy unbalanced market right now. Joe Biden's going to have this new first-time home buyer grant, and it's going to help out first-time home buyers. And I love that idea. I love where his heart is. And I do think that a lot of first-time home buyers are kind of getting screwed right now. It's a lot harder for them to get their offer accepted because a lot of them use these federally backed loans like FHA or VA loans. A lot of them don't have as much money to put down versus somebody who, maybe they're a lot older, maybe it's their second, third home, and they have like 50 grand, 100 grand they can put down that makes their offer more attractive. So it is a little unfavorable for first-time home buyers right now, in my opinion. So I love where his heart is, but the problem, the challenge with that is that with his first-time home buyer grant is it's just going to put more buyers in the market. That's not helping anybody out. We need like a first-time home seller grant or something like that. We need to get more inventory in the market. That's what the government needs to help us out with. If we can just get more inventory in the market, everything will kind of balance out. But right now, there's just so little inventory. It's very frustrating. Stephen, how many offers is the average seller receiving for their property? Yeah, great question. So it depends on your area and it depends on your price range as well. So like here in Maryland, the average price range for a home is, hold on a second. I got to look at my calendar. I got to pick up my son, but I think it's 145. Okay, good. I'm good. So here in Maryland, the average price range for a home is about $400,000 right now. So if you are selling a home for $1 million, the number of buyers in the market of that price range is going to be a lot lower. If you're selling a home for $150,000, not as many in that price range either. So if you're selling a home in that medium price range for whatever your area is, that's where you're going to get a lot more offers. And right now, and we're seeing like 3 to 4 offers in the first week here in Maryland. That's pretty common for that $400,000, $500,000, $600,000 price range. Now, there are some cities, though, in Maryland that we're seeing 10 offers within the first week. So when you submit an offer, you're going up against 10 other people, and it's brutal. I've heard of other cities, Northern Virginia, where they're getting 20 offers in the first week. I've heard some people saying 40 offers on a property within the first week. Like, it's that crazy. So luckily here in Maryland, it's not that bad. It's only like 3 to 4 offers you're going up against. But yeah, it's a very real thing. Yeah, it's just a wild market. And so, I mean, you really have to get kind of creative with what you do to make your offer stronger, because it's not always about price. And actually in this market, it's oftentimes not about price. Because like I was saying, like my other offer was $100,000 above list price, but let's say, it doesn't appraise for that, so let's say it's a $500,000 house, you submit a $600,000 offer. Well, the seller in their mind's thinking, well, great, but what if it doesn't appraise for 600? Then it's not going to sell for that, right? Because it has to appraise in order for the loan to go through. So what we're seeing a lot now is signing another addendum that says buyer agrees to pay X amount above appraised value if home under appraises. So let's say your offer is So let's say you say $10,000 above appraised value if it under appraises, and let's say your offer is $600,000, it appraises at $550,000, then you're agreeing to bring an extra $10,000 in cash to above appraised value in order to make that deal go through. We're seeing that as a very, very effective strategy right now. We're seeing a lot of that. We're also seeing everything's going as is right now. It's just how it is. Everything's selling for as is. But there's really two different types of as is. There's as is with the right to terminate, which means that you can do your inspection. If you find anything really wrong, wood rot, termites, or anything, you can back out of the deal. That's usually what I advise my clients to go for. It makes me very uncomfortable them buying a house, without doing a septic inspection and a home inspection and all that stuff. But the other way you can do it is as is without the right to terminate, which means you're locked in. You can do a home inspection. It's just for informational purposes only, and you're not really you can't really back out of the contract without losing your earnest money deposit. And so that one makes me really nervous. And I don't usually advise people to do that, but we are seeing a lot more of that. So, you have to get kind of creative. That's what you're going up against with these properties. Christina Smallhorn says, hey, Malcolm. Christina is just about to hit 100,000 subscribers on her real estate channel, which is awesome. Thanks for the super sticker, Christina. I'm going to be doing a live stream with her next Tuesday to talk about her channel and how she's grown it to 100,000. She's the first real estate agent that I've known to hit 100,000. Where were we with these? How many offers? Val says, how does the first-time homebuyer tax credit work? What is a tax credit? Yeah, so there's, I believe, I actually have an entire video breaking this down, Joe Biden's policy for his first-time homebuyer tax credit. I did it maybe like 2-3 months ago. And I believe that it's actually, sometimes you can get like a tax rebate, but I believe this one is different in that they're actually just giving you the cash up front. It's not a rebate at tax time. And I think it's supposed to help home buyers put a down payment on a property to help them get their offer accepted. Gut says, generally speaking, how much US dollars should we keep compared to what we invest? Oh man, so oh no, my audio just changed to every time I put this phone down, thank you, Christina. Every time I put this phone down, I always cover up my speaker by accident. I know exactly what I did. So Guts is saying, so this is, everybody will give you different advice on this. Dave Ramsey will say you need 6 to 9 months of an emergency fund to keep in cash. You don't touch it, right? That's Dave Ramsey's. A lot of other people say, whatever with an emergency fund, you're better off investing that. And if you need to sell stocks to access that funds, you can do that. I'm a little bit more in that camp right now. I literally want to have as little money as I can in cash. So understand, when you hold cash, you are losing generally 2 to 3% a year due to inflation. So the last 10 years, it's 2 to 3% inflation rate. And you don't really know what inflation is until after the fact. So like in 2021, we know what inflation was in 2020. 2022, we'll know what inflation was this year. And there's actually a bunch of different ways to calculate what inflation is. And there's some debate over, what you should factor in. Generally, I think a lot of people look at the price of like milk and eggs and gasoline and these sort of everyday necessities to calculate what inflation is. And Jerome Powell, the Federal Reserve Chairman, came out and said, we are only seeing 2% inflation. We actually want to see higher inflation. But there's a lot of people saying like, that's a bunch of nonsense. We're definitely seeing much higher inflation right now. And I'm generally in that camp as well. Like I'm like rising home prices for, no real reason, rising stock prices for no real reason. Like the stock prices in 2020 kept going up, even though these companies were hurting terribly financially. That doesn't make any sense unless what we're seeing is inflation. So I'll be honest, man, I would not keep as little money in cash as you can. Invest it in stocks. If you want something a little bit more liquid, put it in stocks. You can sell those pretty quickly. You can invest it in cryptocurrency, invest it in gold or gold ETFs or other types of funds like that. Really invest it in just about anything but cash. If you're keeping it in cash, you're essentially guaranteeing that you're going to lose at least 3% of its value. And it may be a lot more than that, all honesty, not even factoring in appreciation of these other assets. Christina says, way better. Thank you. Yeah, my audio, I have a microphone on my computer right here, and I always put the dang the thing on there. Let's see, got one more comment here. This means you have to pay 15% more for the home than you would have 12 months ago. See, this is what low interest rates do, not more buying power. That's a lie. So that's kind of some truth to that, and that's what I tell people. I have some buyers saying, oh, I don't want to buy now. Home prices are too high. And I tell them, like, yeah, but you're also getting a lower interest rate, right? If you look at your monthly payment, that's what you should really be comparing. What was your monthly payment 12 months ago to what your monthly payment is right now? Universally, there's a correlation between if interest rates drop, home prices go up. If home prices start crashing, well, no. If interest rates drop, home prices go up because buyers can buy more with it. But they don't go up immediately. They go up slowly because homes have to pass that appraisal. And, and they use previous sales as the comps for those appraisals. So they only really can go up slowly, like incrementally. And yeah, we had a window of opportunity where the Federal Reserve lowered their interest rates. And when they did that, home prices were still fairly reasonable. And you were definitely buying a home and your monthly payment was much, much lower than it was the previous year. But that window of opportunity has kind of passed now. And now, yeah, your monthly payment probably is going to be higher than it was 12 months ago. But interest rates keep going up and they keep going down, but that's really what you want to look at, is what your monthly payment is going to be, not necessarily what you're paying for the house. And, you also have to kind of factor in, like, what do we think it's going to be in the future? I don't see an end in sight for home prices going up. The Federal Reserve said that they're going to keep interest rates low until 2024. I don't know if that's true. Maybe they're just telling us that, maybe they don't want to tell us exactly when they're going to raise interest rates, and they could do it tomorrow for all we know. We don't know. They could do it in 2030. They could keep these rates this low for the next 10 years. We really have no idea. So it's kind of a tricky situation. But yeah. All right, guys, I think that was pretty good. I haven't done a live stream. I haven't done a video on this channel in a while. I really need to get back to it. I enjoy doing these live streams, and I definitely owe this channel a video pretty soon. All right, one more question. Val says, what is the most challenging aspect of being a realtor during this past year? So that's a very good question, man. And what it is that buyer fatigue. It's very frustrating, man. I lose buyers not quite often, but a lot more than I used to, because the buyers are just getting burnt out. They're submitting 2, 3, 4, 5 offers, not getting anything accepted, and then they're just saying, man, we can't keep up with this. We'll wait a year until the market calms down. So that's very frustrating. And working with buyers in general, I'm now doing a lot more work. I would work with a buyer before. Maybe it takes us a month of submitting offers. Really, we submit one offer, and within a month, we get a house under contract and we close. Now, I'm working with buyers 2, 3, 4 months, just waiting for inventory to come on. We're submitting 3, 4, 5 offers before we get one accepted as well. So it's a lot more work. And it's frustrating because I have clients that I was like, man, if I worked with you just a year or 2 years ago, I know I could get you in a beautiful house. It'd be a real smooth process. And now it's just kind of a crazy situation that we're in. So as a real estate agent, thank your real estate agent people out there. Appreciate your real estate agent, especially you buyers out there, because it is much more challenging for us. Like home prices have gone up and the number of home sales have gone up as well. So a lot of people will look at that and say, well, you get paid based on commission. And so there's more transactions and you're getting paid more, you guys are lucking out, but it's really not that case. We're doing literally like 5 times as much work now just to get a commission check. And I have more and more clients that I put hours and hours, 10, 20, 30 hours into working with them, and nothing ever comes out of it. They get buyer's fatigue and they say, hey, we're gonna rent, or we're just going to, do X, Y, and Z instead of purchasing a home. So we never actually get paid at all. So that definitely happens. Yeah, that is definitely frustrating and time consuming. Wish you luck and appreciate all your advice and info. You rock. All right. Thanks, Val. All right, guys, that's probably a good note to end on. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you guys on the next live.